In this video, you are going to discover the insanely maddening reason that the American dream is in danger of dying, that your ability to earn an income, own property, and buy necessities such as food, clothing, and gasoline could be wiped out in the blink of an eye, and the exact steps that you can take to protect your way of life before it becomes too late. According to Mark Warner, senator from Virginia, he says that we're approaching financial Armageddon. Representative Alan West of Florida says, the economic situation here in the United States of America is a fiscal Armageddon. And Senator Joe Manchin from West Virginia says, we cannot ignore the fiscal Titanic of our national debt and deficit. According to Martin Weiss, founder of Weiss Research, he says, make no mistake, America is rushing headlong towards the greatest economic crisis in our history, an American apocalypse. Porter Stansberry, founder of Stansberry & Associates Investment Research, says, the next phase in this crisis will threaten our very way of life. The savings of millions will be wiped out. This disaster will change your business and your work. It will dramatically affect your savings accounts, investments, and retirement. It will change everything about your normal way of life, where you vacation, where you send your kids or grandkids to school, how and where you shop, the way you protect your family and home. Government spending on an unprecedented scale, unconscionable amounts of federal debt, and impotent politicians are about to come down on Americans with a heavy hand. These massive debts are about to implode and send the dollar plunging in value. This will certainly spell disaster for the American dream to millions in our country. But if you take these warnings to heart and follow the exact steps that I outlined in this video, there is still time to protect yourself and your family, and to come out of this crisis with an upper hand, possibly even wealthier than before. My name is Jason Hornung. I'm the president and founder of the Jason Hornung Agency Incorporated. I'm a licensed financial professional who has been studying money and the markets intensely since 2003. I'm also a conservative small business owner who believes in God, family, and my country. I created this video and website because the advice I've given my personal clients has helped to protect and grow their wealth through the crash of 2008 and beyond. And I believe what's on the horizon is much, much worse than what happened back then. It's my duty as your countryman to warn you about what may happen and help you to take the steps necessary to prepare for it, if you so choose. Right now, if the government doesn't make sweeping fiscal changes, everything you buy, food, clothing, energy, will at least double, possibly triple, or even quadruple in price. And here's the reason why. Federal Reserve Chief Ben Bernanke is currently running the printing presses 24/7 like a crazed counterfeiter.
As a result of litigation filed by Bloomberg and Fox Business, for the first time in history, the Federal Reserve was forced to cough up documents that it mightily resisted and tried very hard to keep secret. Congressman Kucinich, were you surprised that in a 3-month period, the Federal Reserve Bank, created out of thin air and distributed to banks and businesses and governments across the globe, $3.3 trillion, more money than the annual budget of the United States of America, and about 25% of America's gross national product, gone, created and out there in 2 months?
Well, Congressman Paul and I have been talking about this for years. The lack of accountability on the part of the Fed, the no transparency, the fact that they can, through a device called quantitative easing, create money out of nothing, and then that ends up inevitably, in one way, shape, or form, being backed by the full faith and credit of the United States. The Fed clearly is out of control. We have to find mechanisms to bring it back under control, and I think we could start by looking at that Federal Reserve Act of 1913. That was absolutely disastrous for this country. The Fed has to be brought back under the control of the Congress, which has the ability to do it.
Congressman Paul, you have made it your career to expose the Fed, to have the Fed audited, and eventually to have the Fed go away. Do things like this, courageous federal judges forcing the Fed to show its ledger books, help move the ball forward to expose what the Fed is really like?
Yes, it's wonderful, because I've been pessimistic. Even when Fox and Bloomberg filed these suits, I was sort of pessimistic, because if you look at it, and I know you have, historically the courts have been very favorable to central banking, and
yes,
not, when you look at the gold clause and all, they always ruled against the people. This time, we got a break here, and the momentum is great, and philosophically, the education is moving along to expose the Fed for the fallacies, both morally and economically. So I think think we're making great strides, and we should keep pursuing this. And this is partial, but we still have to get a full audit of the Fed, because I am quite sure when the full audit is known and we find out exactly what they've been doing, most Americans are going to be outraged. And transparency now is very popular, and it's a bipartisan issue. So I hope we can keep this momentum up. And thanks to interviewers and individuals on Fox Business, we've been helped a great deal.
Congressman Kucinich, why should the average person be disturbed, concerned, or fearful that the Fed created $3.3 trillion out of thin air and put it into the monetary system?
Well, first of all, it's who they gave it to. Secondly, it's that, except for this lawsuit, we would know about it. Third is that they have the privilege of creating money, and we're in a system where money is debt, and eventually, in one way, shape, or form, it'll get translated into debt, and people are it's going to come out of everyone's pocket. Because Wall Street, as we know, exists as a way of just trying to transfer all that money to themselves, and then if they go bust, they get bailed out by the government, which means the taxpayers. So we ought to be concerned, because inevitably it's our money.
If you
Go ahead, Judge, you know, printing money is literally counterfeit, and if you equate it to counterfeit, the founders hated counterfeit. In the Coinage Act of 1792, they said that if you counterfeit the currency of the nation, you deserve the death penalty. But here we just casually accept, well, the Federal Reserve, we don't know who they are, but they always do good things. We'll let them counterfeit. But hopefully that's coming to an end.
Look, if you add $3.3 trillion to the monetary supply in the fall of 2008, is it any wonder, I ask this to both of you, that in the spring of 2011, the price of everything is going up? Too much money chasing too few goods. It's an economics 101, almost textbook definition of the cause of inflation. Congressman Kucinich and then Congressman Paul.
You know, in listening to what you said, something occurs to me. I mean, the money hasn't been used to create jobs. It's being used to create more wealth for a few people.
Right.
That is a huge problem for a democracy.
Congressman Paul.
And this is absolutely true. When you create money, you don't create wealth, you push prices up. But the real unfairness of this is all prices and all labor does not go up evenly. Some wages go up, profits go up on Wall Street. Real wages actually go down as prices rise. So that is why it's so evil and sinister and immoral, and it's unconstitutional. And we're coming to the day with the monetary crisis that's coming, we're going to come to the day where we are going to have monetary reform, and hopefully we can participate in doing something very positive in that area.
Are you two in trouble with the leadership of your parties for appearing together on the same camera and the same program?
Let's hope not. If we are, Judge, we're coming for you.
I love you both, Congressman Dennis Kucinich, Congressman Ron Paul.
As Congressmen Paul and Kucinich pointed out, the Fed is engaging in a secretive, irresponsible, irrational, absolutely insane pumping up of America's monetary base. And there's literally no end in sight. In just a moment, I'm going to give you step-by-step instructions on how to protect yourself and your family from the pending disaster brought on by the Fed. But before I get to that, you also need to understand this fact. As the Fed continues this madness, global investors are dumping dollars like a cheating girlfriend, sending the value of our money down into a tailspin. And if the thought of the Fed's counterfeiting scheme weren't terrifying enough, there's an even more serious attack on our way of life coming down the pipeline. On February 10th, 2011, the International Monetary Fund disclosed details of its plan to replace the U.S. dollar as the world's reserve currency. If you have no idea what that means, let me quick give you the Reader's Digest version. The U.S. dollar is the currency used for the majority of international trades and settlements. In fact, many items sold on world markets can only be purchased with dollars, forcing countries to buy our currency whether they want to or not. This overflooding of the market with U.S. dollars has the IMF, the United Nations, the central banks of countries from China to Russia, and even the UK demanding a swift change. If a different currency replaces the dollar as the world's reserve, the prices of just about everything you buy will skyrocket. Unless leaders in Washington like Paul and Kucinich can make immediate and drastic changes, the dollar will sink faster than a brick in water, thus causing the greatest explosion in consumer prices and in your cost of living ever seen. Oil prices, gasoline prices, food prices all could double, triple, quadruple, or more. How would you feel about paying more than $10 for a gallon of gasoline, $6 for a dozen eggs, $5 for a loaf of bread, $12 for a pound of hamburger, and $8 for a gallon of milk. This is a real, clear, and present danger. Skyrocketing food and energy prices will affect the standard of living for all but the wealthiest of us. It will shove millions of middle Americans over the poverty line and force them into complete dependence on social programs and charity. How bad could things get? Well, you know about the unrest that overthrew Egypt's government. You see the chaos in the streets of Libya, Syria, Yemen, Bahrain, and even countries like Greece, Ireland, and Great Britain. The demonstrators and rioters themselves said they took to the streets because of the most basic of human needs, food and soaring food prices. Think it can't happen here? Listen to David Walker, former U.S. Comptroller General and head of the U.S. Government Accountability Office. Former U.S. Comptroller General Walker is warning that Washington's debts could sink the economy, and soon. According to Mr. Walker, the Greeks engaged in a variety of creative accounting practices, and there were a lot of big and bad surprises that caused this situation to erupt. The U.S. has been engaging in a lot of creative accounting for years with regard to the Social Security trust funds. Now we've got major creative accounting going on with government-sponsored entities, Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac. We own a supermajority of them, and we're not consolidating them into the financial statements. We don't consolidate the Federal Reserve into the financial statements. And so the bottom line is, we're not Greece, but we could end with their same problems. That's critical. Greece's problems included crashing stock and bond prices, 18% interest rates, and riots in the streets. How soon could it happen here? Walker points to 2012. Here's what you need to do to protect yourself and your family. Step 1 is to get out of all investments that drop when interest rates go up. This means treasury bonds, municipal bonds, and even many mutual funds. Step 2, get into positions that are designed to capitalize on real estate declines. The falling value of our dollar, coupled with the massive federal debt ready to explode, is a recipe for little hope in a real estate recovery this decade. Right now, there are investments that can give you 57% returns or more if real estate declines remain the status quo. Assuming mortgage rates start rising and the dollar continues to plummet in value, the real estate market will get pounded even harder, which means you stand to make much more with these investments. Step 3, move as much of your money into tax-advantaged products with guaranteed interest outside of banks and Wall Street as possible. At this very moment, the stock market and banks are ready to pop like a balloon in a child's hand. You don't need to be an economics professor at Harvard to know what all of this means for the U.S. stock market. The government's $14 trillion debt and $1.7 trillion deficit ready to blow. States like California, Illinois, New Jersey, and New York nearly bankrupt. The entire housing and construction industry deadlocked in the worst real estate depression of our time. More than 1,000 banks teetering on the edge of failure. The U.S. Federal Reserve flooding the world with freshly printed dollars, and world leaders demanding that the dollar be replaced as the world's reserve currency. There's never been a time when it was more crucial for you to take swift action with your portfolio. Let me make this very clear. I may be the only one who warns you of this. When the first chip hits the floor, it will be too late to safeguard your money. And that first chip is ready to fall quite literally at any moment. Nobody knows for sure which straw will break the camel's back. It could be another explosive revolution in the Middle East. It could be the sudden default of a major state or city. It could be the announcement that the dollar has been replaced as the world's reserve currency. But this you can be 100% sure of. Whoever fails to take evasive action with their money right now could find themselves much poorer any day from now. I've just published my Financial Crisis Survival Guide to help you get through this, and I want to personalize it specific to your situation. This guide is a comprehensive strategy to protecting and actually growing your wealth during the financial crisis happening around us right now. In my Financial Crisis Survival Guide, you'll discover which investments will plummet as interest rates rise. I'll show you exactly what to sell, when, and how. Which investments are poised to skyrocket as the real estate market declines. For example, there's one you can get in on for only $225 that if you time properly could bring returns of over 307.2%. Financial tools that are backed up with cash reserves by companies outside of banks and Wall Street that give you guaranteed interest. These companies are some of the strongest in the world and are not vulnerable to the current crisis. Along with the guide, you'll receive specific recommendations based on your personal situation for the financial tools from these companies that can help you to protect and grow your wealth before it's too late. Here's how to get your copy of my Financial Crisis Survival Guide today. It's really quite simple. Normally I charge $47 to use this guide for protecting your wealth, but I've decided to slash the price for you right now down to only $27. That's 43% off the regular price for you being here today. Don't you think $27 is just a painless drop in the bucket? Especially when you compare it to the untold thousands you stand to lose if you don't take evasive action to protect your wealth now. If that weren't enough, I'm going to back up my advice with an unprecedented guarantee. My $10,000 or 100% your money back guarantee. I am 100% confident that you will make or save at least $10,000 over the next 12 months following the advice that I lay out in my Financial Crisis Survival Guide. That if for any reason you don't, you can request a full refund of your purchase price, no questions asked, and without delay. There's no fine print. Anytime within the next year, if you don't make or save at least $10,000 with what I've shown you, just contact my support team and I'll rush you back every penny you spent on my guide. All you have to do to get instant access to my Financial Crisis Survival Guide is click the orange Add to Cart button below. Fill in your information on the next page, get out your credit card, and complete your order for the lowest price of $27 that I've ever offered on this guide. After you complete the order, you'll be emailed a link to download your copy of the guide so you can start reading it immediately, even if it's 2 a.m. Your personalized recommendations will be sent within the next 48 hours by one of my licensed professionals. I highly suggest that you take immediate action on my advice. This is the only way to make sure that yourself, your family, and your wealth is protected from what is about to happen. Failure to act now could literally be the worst mistake of your life, but you need to be free to make that decision for yourself. Just don't say, "I didn't warn you."